hold the button down, the bar fills up, and then you release it, and the power deploys. And passives don't do anything. Well, they do actually. They are always active. So that would be any sort of. We use those often for. Basically, every character has one or more passives on them that govern things like how often do you eat food, and how does your character work, and what sort of special bonuses do you get. So when we have that, I'll be working on those probably later this week. These next set of properties are also kind of cool. So interrupt, what that does is basically, if this checkbox is checked, it means this power will stop any other power in progress, stomp on it, and do this power instead. That is, examples of those would be like dodges and your C powers, both both are interrupts. So they will stop any abilities in progress and say, stomp on those, do this one instead.
So Mark, we are finally online.
Yay! All right.
Streaming. What?
Should I stop that thing? That verification?
Yeah, probably.
We started running a process, but we didn't even need it.
Okay.
Twitch apparently stabilized or something. We're streaming now, but you may want to take it from the top and explain what you're doing. Maybe just, I guess, run through the motions.
Sure. So, all right, guys, I'm in the middle of making a power for the Templar. So let me jump way back. Apparently Twitch was not cooperating, and we may or may not have been streaming. We were certainly recording, so if you can catch the beginning, like the first 10 minutes of this or whatever. Is it going to be YouTube, or where's it going to be?
Sorry, say that one.
Oh, just hit our website. You'll be able to catch up if you want to see the beginning. So what I'm working on basically, and what you're going to be watching me do today is work on an ability. So working on a Templar power. If you want to know more about the Templar, you can just hit up our website and look for Meet the Templar.
I can post a link to that in the chat as well. I can post a link to that.
Okay, yeah. So good old Max will post a link to you guys if you're interested in learning a little more about the Templar. But basically, she's sort of in the Church of Archon sort of thing. She's the melee, or the military equivalent of the military branch of the Sun God worshippers, with the Confessors being the arcane branch. So she's melee focused and all that. I believe I covered initially. When we first start working on a power, we start with the bubble sheet. The bubble sheet sort of lays out our design for how things are going to, what the powers are going to be, what they're going to do, and we'll show this to the. Okay, and we give these to the different disciplines, the artists and engineers to describe how what the design for the character is. And the specific ones are going specific powers we're going to be making today are her basic attacks, primarily because those are animations are done. So I thought it'd be cool for you guys to actually see something happen, as opposed to and trust me, it'll look cool once once all the assets are finished. So I have so far started Unity, clicked a button, and started filling out some base data. So we use Unity to develop Crowfall, but we do use a lot of proprietary tools. This is our power editor, and I've been filling out stuff. And where were we? I believe I was clicking Clanimate. So I'll run through these one more time because we gotta make 3 of these. So I'll just keep moving along. So as last we saw our heroes, they were describing interrupts. So I already told you guys, interrupts will, if this power were an interrupt, it would stop any ability in progress and play this ability instead. Useful for specifically like your C powers, your ultimates, and sure thing, and dodge. Usable while stun, knockdown, suppressed. Those specifically for powers like retaliate and also the C powers, we let them use those to interrupt those states actually. Resource state allows us to specify what the what cost is going to be. So if you're a mana user, we would make this mana. But since it's a basic attack, this has no cost, so we're not going to worry about that at all. Resource amount would be how much mana, rage, what have you, a power would cost. Consume all resources is going to use them all. These next series of fields here is actually how we determine what weapon or piece of equipment is required to use that. I'll show you on the night. It's already filled out. So, for example, we can say, hey, this requires a one-handed weapon. So, this is what the string would be. So basically, this is a reference to a string that would be like, you need a one-handed weapon to use this. I have not made any Templar items, so we can't fill those out yet. So we'll just leave them blank. This animation stuff, we'll get to that shortly, but not right now. Global and power blackout. So what blackout does is it basically prevents you from using another ability until the blackout time has expired. Now we're going to be setting these from the animation itself because we want to set the blackout to happen when the last animation, at the transition point between the last animation to the next animation. And so we'll be setting those in the animator here shortly. Allow turret rotation, not useful in this case, but for example, the Knight's shield, that's what lets you pivot and swivel to aim while you're charging an ability, for example, or a channel. Excuse me, warp time is not used anymore. So we have we support up to 3 animations. That's plenty because that gives us. In this case, we're just going to have one because it's a one shot. But if it were a channel or a charge up, it could have basically it could have a wind up and then a loop, and then a follow through. We only have one, so we're just going to use the one animation. Animation ID is just an arbitrary number I've already set up ahead of time and gave the animators. They use that in Mechanum, which is Unity's animation system, to set up parameters to play the animation. So I have set up most of the data here, and this is good enough for the purposes of part 1 here. So what I'm going to do next is terrify Blair, because he doesn't know I do this, but he's watching, and I'll show him some tricks. So we can in fact duplicate a couple of these and save ourselves a little bit of time. So I'm going to duplicate 1, rename it to 2. Sometimes Unity will try to help you by naming things. Very, very interesting stuff. Oops. And sometimes I will completely destroy what I'm working on. Okay. All right, so that got named properly. Let's make sure everything, the only thing we got to change is the animation ID. Number 2 is 1802. I have these memorized because it's pretty easy. 1, 2, 3. And we can do this a third time for basic number 3. And again, Unity's not trying to help me. That's good. Actually glad to hear that. Okay, so we have done that, and we need to have that point to the correct animation. And so now might be a good time, if there's any questions, to ask them, because I need to restart Unity so that our tools will see the new abilities I just made. And we can get on to looking at some of the animations and setting up some of that data. And you'll get to see some Son of the Templar for the first time in all of her glory.
So let me ask them for some questions.
Anything designy. Which actually, it's lots of stuff. Anything non-art, I guess. All right.
Tennis asked, did you say the name of the power or passive that we're looking at?
These are the Templar basics. Yeah, unfortunately, Twitch was not cooperating at first, so I'm not sure how much you guys did not see. But we are specifically working on her basic attack. So this will be her basic attack 1, basic attack 2, and basic attack 3. And so Unity is back up and rolling. And so we can continue on our way. See, it even found the animation. Sometimes it does. and sometimes it doesn't. So who's this jerk? See that? Isn't she wonderful? There she is, the Templar in all of her glory. Actually, no, this is Unity's default dude. We want the Templar, so let's grab her, drag her over there, bam. So here's a Templar, and this is her first basic attack. And so there's two things we're going to look at here. The first one is we want to figure out when the power blackout is going to be, and the power blackout has to happen, has to be set when at the transition point to her next animation. And so we will want to find her animations. All right. So if we look at basic attack number 2, I can make this a little bigger. Look at the start of basic 2. Is this basic 2? Yes. You can see that her arm's out like that. So that's going to be what we're looking for here. And it's usually fairly easy to find these two just by a combination of looking. We really want to look for is when she's pretty much done with the ability, out of energy, and ready to start rolling on to the next one. So let's see what that is. You see right about here, she's done, she's starting to return to idle, and so we want to hit just before that. Let's say right about at like frame 12 or so. And so then I will go and I will set an animator parameter. So this is Unity's animation system I'm working with here, and I can add a parameter that I will call end blackout. All right, and then hit apply, and that is in there. That is one of the pieces of data we wanted to look for. The other piece, which I have my spreadsheet ready to look for, is we want to see when it looks like she is hitting. So we want to look for the point at which she would be cutting into the opponent in front of her. So you can see that's very, very fast to hit. It looks like at about frame 4, she would be making contact if there's somebody directly in front of her. So I will go over to this here spreadsheet and just quickly, oops, I guess I don't want to do that. And I will use that value later. But for now, I'm just making a note of it. So that was the first animation. So let's look at animation 2. So animation 2. And we'll look at the third animation to get an idea of when we think that should transition. You can see that she's winding all the way back, hand by her head there. And again, it's usually fairly easy to see. You just want to, when she is at that point, just about out of energy with the swing. I want to say somewhere about, and this is another tweaky thing too, right? Like, I may very well get in there and say, hey, you know what, that doesn't look perfect. Let me adjust this a little bit. But that looks. I think that's pretty good for our purposes right there. So I'll set another one of those parameters and blackout right there, and hit apply. If I don't hit apply, Unity will ask me if I want to save, which is good, because I usually forget to hit apply. And then for the last one, she's not going to, our final ones don't transition back to the thing. So we will look for when she's basically out of energy and just before she'd return to idle, because this is the big finish, right? And so that is happening, it's about 19. So I'll set that parameter right about there. And blackout. If I don't save and click on something else, Unity's like, hey, don't you want to save, dude? I'm like, yeah, I do. I actually do. Oh, you know what? Forgot to do one, or actually two things, actually, with both of those, is I forgot to grab the hit timings. let's go back and do that real quick. So this one's got some upward motion. I want to look at the side too. And it looks like she's probably making contact about there. Yeah, so we'll say frame 10. And I'll just make a note of that over here for when we start looking at delivery mechanisms in a second. And then we got one more to look at. Say, when is she hitting here? Oh, you know what? Oh, I guess she's only hit once. Never mind. Sometimes they hit multiple times, and those are fun because then you get multiple hits. So it looks like right about there. And like I said, the animators are. There's still some work. Once you get in game, you'll see she has a lot of her locomotion, but since everything's not perfect, it won't look exactly as it will at release. But it's looking like about frame 10 is the hit for that one. So that's basically the same thing, but whatever. So we have everything we need. We've set our parameters up. And we could actually, yeah, maybe we'll do that. Show you real quick. We should theoretically be able to see this working in game right now. So why not we'll just try that real quick and make sure things are copacetic. Do you have any questions while we wait for Unity to do its thing?
Absolutely do. Let me go look for some real quick.
All right.
There were some good ones.
Yeah, Unity, especially first time you've restarted Unity, it takes its time starting.
Yeah,
once you hit that
absolutely.
play button, but it's usually just the first time.
It really does. Durenthal asked about the Templar's theme. He said Myrmidons are bleeds, Templars holy, but how does that manifest in terms of game mechanics?
So I can say a lot, but unfortunately I have been forbidden to say anything. So I actually can't answer any specifics because
Did Blair put the clamp on you?
Yes, I've been told not to give away anything that hasn't been given away already. So we know she's going to be melee. You know she's going to be a tank. She's going to be different from both the Myrmidon and the Knight. You know what? I guess I better not say anymore. Because I'm really good at leaking. Just keep asking questions. Keep asking the same question, and eventually you'll get something out of me. Yeah. So what I'm doing here, by the way, is we have just some internal test region that we can load up locally to let us look at things, which it's still doing its thing. Yeah, shouldn't be much longer. Like I said, this is more of a preview probably than you would get normally for these guys. So it'll probably be I don't want to say next week, but probably next week maybe. So let's see. Oh, you know what? I just remembered I didn't set up the blackout times, but you can see the animations she's animating the first one, but why isn't she playing the other two? Well, because we haven't set up the power combos yet. So let's roll on to those next. So this is how we basically tell the game that there is another ability you can do, that this power is part of a chain of powers that can be performed. So those are specified in as a power combo. It's basically just these are basically data containers, they're just assets. So I'm going to cheat and do the easy thing and just duplicate an existing one and change the relevant data. Because why redo the same work over and over again? So we're going to call this Templar Basic Attack 1, 2, 2. And it will be Templar Basic Attack 1 to 2. So if you look at the data over here, you can specify what ability number 1 is. So we will filter and find the basic attack number 1 we made. And we will have that linked to number 2. This is what key you need to press to activate the ability. So this will be activated with your basic attack button. No alternate abilities, whatever alternate hotkey. I guess you could use these with the, if that makes you happy. Archetypes allowed. We want this to not be champion, but we want this to be Templar. So we will do that. The priority basically is like, should this combo happen while another combo is happening? The priority to decide which one you see. This almost never happens, but it's there just in case, since it could potentially happen. I don't know, probably never. The duration is how long you have to hit the button before the combo is ended. So this is that's plenty of time basically. This is one of those things that it'll feel wrong if that number is incorrect. So far it seems like fine. So we'll feel that when we get in there. And so that date is fine. So we'll just go ahead and duplicate the one we just made, and we'll call it Templar basic attack 2 to 3. And we will go in, change basic 1 to basic 2, change basic 2 to basic 3. And hey, what do you know? She's still pointing to the Templar, and that date is still the same, so yay. Hit save, because, again, superstition. I don't know. So we've set up the power combos, so theoretically she should go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 when we get back into the game again. So let us return to the Templar powers we were working on. So we have the root ability node. If we were in there and banging on a target, we wouldn't be doing any damage or really doing anything, but we'd be animating, at least so. So we've gotten that far. So, next part, we need to start assigning our delivery mechanism. So the root ability node will chain into a delivery mechanism. Now what a delivery mechanism is it basically casts a primitive, a simple shape that's usually, in our case, is usually a cube or rectangular, you know, six-sided, whatever you call those things, cubes, or a sphere. Or it could be self or a couple other choices, but for the most part, usually the game will basically cast a shape and say, who's in my shape? Who's in this shape? Who's in this sphere? Who's in this box? And return those as targets. And then we will do things to those targets. So we want to specify our delivery mechanism. So we have choices. Our choices are many. Self and group are other choices, right? Those actually don't draw shapes. It just goes directly to self or directly to a group member if they're close enough. We want area, since this is going to be a cone. All of our basic attacks, all of our basic melee attacks are cones. So we're going to make that an area. Team filter, we want it only to hit hostile enemies. We could say hit friendlies only, or only hit people in my group, or only hit me. To give us some variation, single hits targets, we don't really care about that. Projectile targets, ignore caster. That's useful if you want to example, you want like a power that hits my group members, doesn't hit you, whatever. That might be useful for that. Delay, we're going to set as the value we recorded from the animation for the hit time. So ability 1 looked like it was hitting at frame 4, so we're going to set that as the delay. Allow re-aiming, why not? This actually doesn't really do anything with an instant, but for channel charge power would let you, we're kind of in conjunction with the turret rotation. The shape we want is not none, but in fact cone. We could make the cone offset if we wanted it to swivel this way or that way or point in different directions. We don't want to do that. We want this to be relative to the character. Split damage, we no longer check this box because you told us you didn't like it, so we don't do that anymore. Max target, this will hit one target. We don't really care about line of sight right now. For sorting, distance ascending, basically that means it's going to cast a shape and then say, give me the closest target to me in the cone that's been cast out there. Execute at target location, again, not relevant for this, but this would be useful for like if I wanted to do like, you know, cast a sphere at my target or whatever, stuff like that. Thunk is a word that means make this flush with the ground in world building and stuff, but specifically for this, it would cause the delivery mechanism to always be flush with the ground. You could theoretically be in the air, even though we're required grounded. It's just not necessary to use that box, so we usually don't. So radius, we'll set that to 5. And for the cone, we'll make it a 130, which is is basically imagine, well, it's a little more than 130, but close enough for our purposes. You know, it's basically imagine a 90 with a 45 on it. She has a pretty good arc, so that should be good enough to start for our purposes. And so that's pretty much all we need for delivery mechanisms. And rather than bore you guys, I'm just going to quickly do this a couple more times. Do you have a question ready for me there? While I...
Man, it's always hard to grab design questions because I know you
Well,
design,
I mean, you
everything
can...
changes, so
Yeah.
nobody wants to say anything concrete. Durenthal asked about the Confessor raycast change. You said it made it way stronger compared to like Rangers, for example. And
Sure.
I don't know if there's thoughts about whether or not the raycast will soon be applied to like the Rangers or other ranged attackers.
Yeah, so this is we made some pretty big changes to the game recently, right? Based on you guys' feedback and everything, and so Confessor was sort of an experiment to try that to see you know how it played, and seems like it's playing pretty well. So does that mean we're going to translate that to the Ranger? Actually, I can't really answer that right now. We are definitely probably going to do, you know, I mean, the Ranger's not done, so we're going to keep doing, you know, basically rolling through and doing iterations, but we don't have any solid plans for exactly what's going to happen with the, you know, what we're going to do with the Ranger right now, as far as like bringing her in line. But I mean, it's pretty safe bet that we're going to, you know, we're going to do something to that degree. I just don't know an answer right now to exactly what. So we're almost done setting these up, setting up our delivery mechanisms. So again, I'm just setting up the delays, making it a cone. Oops, hey, I took a screenshot. Awesome. Making sure the data is how it needs to be. We're getting one target. This, oops, make sure I have radius. Otherwise, I won't hit anything. Make sure that all looks good. Okay, so we are cranking along pretty well now. Getting down to the damage. So now we're shooting out a cone, and we're going to gather targets and do stuff to them. And these targets are going to be enemies. We're going to grab the closest one to them and do stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do damage. So we have all kinds of, like this. I could probably spend an hour just talking about this you know, game effects generally, but this particular game effect, we're going to make a game effect that does damage. So we're going to ignore a lot of this stuff because, like I said, game effects pretty huge category. So stat we want this to affect is hit points. Hit location, don't really care about that. So min and max value, I don't have my spreadsheets open, but I will go through and make these the actual values after the stream, unfortunately. So I'm just going to put some placeholder values in there right now. We definitely want to let these crit. We could say this always crits, but we don't want to do that for basics. But we do that in some cases. Hate multiplier, we just want this to give normal hate. So we can do weird stuff and say, basically, we could set values to whatever, do a percentage of health, whatever. We don't want to do that. We want to do a flat value. We want to add weapon damage. Again, this is going to be set once I actually get back to balancing this. But we do want it to be 100% weapon, so we can basically set how much base damage or how much base versus weapon contributes to. So if we said this did fire damage, for example, we could say this does 100% fire damage or does 100% whatever the weapon does. Since this is a sword swing, we're going to say this does whatever the weapon does as far as the damage type. Its damage type contribution is going to come straight from the weapon. So we have that data set up. What do we got here? Show buff fly text, doesn't matter. Puts target in combat, sure. It will do that. It's not going to teleport you. We can apply forces if we wanted to. We're not going to do that. We do want to do some screen shake For the target, mediums, and for the caster too, I'll usually do milds, and then a medium on the big one. This is again, it's another one of those things that I'll adjust once I get in there and look at it. A lot of this is feel stuff, right? You set up the data, and then once the data's set up, you get in there and you play it in context, and then you start adjusting things so they feel correct. We don't want to hide the fly text. We will do this, for example, the passives. If we didn't do that on the passives, you'd be seeing numbers come off your head all the time. Anytime your character decided to use stamina or eat, move the chicken ticker or whatever. But in this case, we want you to see fly text so you can see how much damage you're doing and stuff. And then the last thing we want to set are some labels. And this is what is this? It's a melee physical AoE. Melee damage physical. All right. And that's pretty much that. There is something I can do to make my life easier. We don't really have copy and paste, but we have something vaguely similar. So I just templatized that. And I will paste the templated result on this here. It does everything but labels. Oops. Magic, damage, melee. Oh no, not magic. Melee. Damage, physical. All right, and we will do this one more time. I think we can probably take a question too.
Sure. Can I throw a couple at you real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So I believe it was Tinnis asked earlier, how do powers interact with hitboxes?
How do powers interact with hitboxes? So basically, when you use a power, we are shooting out a delivery mechanism. For example, like in this case, when you use a power, where your character is shooting out a cone in front of them, and that cone is going to look for anything, basically filtering by team. It's going to say what objects did I find that are in this shape that I just drew, which in the case of our basic attacks are a cone. And it's going to filter them by the type. So in this case, it's going to say who are the hostile people in front of me, and it's going to gather those guys out. Is that?
No, I think that answers the question. Yeah.
Okay.
Darenthal asked, why did the knight's shield-based powers get based on the sword damage instead of the shield? And Tinnis answered, and maybe that is correct, as maybe not. He assumed it was because swords and shields were originally one combined item. Are shields going to affect shield damage? Is there any plan for that in the future?
Right now, I'm going to go ahead and say no. I hate to say no because, the answer is maybe, but for right now, the answer is no. It's basically sort of in the same manner that it's because it doesn't have damage on it, right? Damage comes from the weapon, is where that field comes from. We might change that, right?
Sure.
Right now, we need a similar thing for the ranger, so we could. Right now we can't, so it doesn't. So that's probably the easiest answer. Will we? Maybe.
Right.
But right now it doesn't because it can't.
And shields right now, they affect your armor, right? And
Yep. Shields? No. No. Shield is basically it's a stat item at this point.
Okay. Stat boost.
Yeah. So. Yep. So anyway, I believe we have all our data in for all these, right? Did I put the? Oops. Make sure I have the labels. Yep. So all that's rolling. So we should be able to have just about everything we need. Still one more thing we got to do. And I probably should have done that first, but whatever. We have 15 minutes. Got enough time to get in the game, confirm this stuff works, and then do one more thing. Maybe confirm that works too. We can take some more questions if there's more, because we got to wait for Unity to do its thing.
Let me look.
Should be a little quicker this time, but.
We had earlier questions about the raycast, and
Okay.
let me see if there's anything about the.
Yeah. No, we hear you guys about the ranger, and we will certainly do something. Right? She's there's a lot. I mean, I mentioned before the stream was even working, but you'll hear this if you rewatch the beginning part. I mentioned that we were, this was kind of cool because for me anyway, because a lot of the assets are done, and a lot of times when we're building these, we don't have the assets. So I'm looking at a knight who's just standing there stock steady and not really doing anything. I'm like, all right, it looks like it's working. I guess I'll look at it again once the assets are in. But the assets, the assets are there. And the reason is because we'd been working on some other things, which include things like necromancy. So I mean, you very soon have to have a vessel, right? Like the whole concept of this is my character you'll because your character is ultimately going to be a crow. Right, your character is right. the crow that's going to embody these guys. So there's going to be a lot of things are going to change in the future. So, oops, you know what? I logged in with the knight. Ha 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 ha. All right, rather than take up too much time, I'm going to go back and do the one other thing we want to do, which is grant a pip on the final. Did I not? I guess. I have a very shiny screen, so I didn't realize I didn't unclick the play button. I'm like, why is it not unplaying? So we got to do that. The other thing that's very that we usually do with basic attacks is grant resource. So the small assets, got to have those. The Templar uses pips. As I mentioned before, anyone was able to watch, which is somewhat similar to the duelist, but she only uses one at a time. Though some abilities might channel and use multiple over time. But unlike the duelist, she's not going to be spending 5 pips at once. So right, the generation is going to be. I don't want to say slower, but it's gonna be different. It's she's not the same. So she is going to grant a pip on her 3rd basic. So we're gonna go ahead and oops, you know what I'm doing? The wrong thing. So we need to add a self-delivery mechanism because she's going to do this to herself. So self is really easy. I don't have to do anything more. It has all the data it needs right there. And usually to keep things even and balanced and whatever, I'll use the same delay in the self as the area so that these resolve at the same time. And what we want to do is grant you a pip.
A righteous pip.
A righteous pip.
As Billy has coined.
It is in fact, righteousness is the name of her pip. She's granting a point of righteousness, and we will do that by clicking a box that says combo points. We'll write 1. And she will get 1. So, but actually no, we don't want to do that. What am I doing? We actually want you, this is what I get for being prepared. Actually what I want to do, if I would have done what you just saw, what would have happened is whether or not you hit somebody, you would get a pip, which we don't want. We actually want you to have to hit somebody first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain a delivery mechanism off of the damage so that if you do damage, it will chain to a self DM, which will in turn grant you the pip. And that should be fairly straightforward. I don't think we don't want it to crit. That should be good enough.
Can I throw a couple questions at you?
You can.
Mira Luna asked, when do things like hit sounds, flinches, staggers, and blood get put in?
So those are animator kind of things. So a lot of those are already in, and will just magically happen. So yeah, it's pretty much the a lot of times, as I mentioned before, we'll be ahead of the animators and the effects artists and everything, and the character guys, and sometimes we won't. This is one of those cases. So a lot of her flinches, and she's a lot of her animations are already done. So basically, you'll see once I get her in. Actually, maybe I'll even be naughty and give you a preview of.
You're getting cold for Christmas.
I am. Okay, so. Oh no! What did I do? I did something terrible. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I forgot to do something. But you saw what she was doing? That was wrong. So I forgot to add the power blackouts, which requires me clicking a button to pull the data that we set in the animation into the base level of the power. So let's go ahead and do that.
An easy thing to forget.
Yeah, like I said, there's only 1,000 pieces.
You're right.
So, and thankfully this is fairly straightforward. I just drag the animation over here and I click this import blackout times, and what that will do is it will look at the parameter that I set earlier and pull that into the ability. So you notice I'm global blackout versus power blackout, and again, blackout, what that means is this is how long you must wait before you can activate another ability. Global blackout keeps you rooted, power blackout lets you move. So we're gonna let you move while you do these, so I'm using power blackout. So I just set that for the first ability. The second ability, I'll do the same thing, drag the animation over, import power blackout, put that there, and we'll do that in number 3. Bam, that easy. All right, now she shouldn't spaz out when I hold down right click or left click or whatever button that is. That there button you hold down.
Wabis asked, I guess while you're waiting,
Mhm.
which archetype have you worked on that has had the most complex scripting workflow so far?
Well, we always try to top ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I'm seriously, because we're always whatever new tricks we can get, right? So I mean, Duelist had, the Duelist stealth is fairly actually stealth and inconceivable are both pretty monumentally complicated powers. Myrmidon did a lot of fairly complicated stuff. So I guess, I mean, recently it would probably be Duelist, really. I mean, because we're always trying to push the envelope and, ask for new exciting toys that we can use both for the archetype we're working for and working on and for future stuff. Because the wise designer asks for Lego pieces, not for the whole car. Because we want to build lots of things rather than one thing.
And actually, along that same vein, Hiriel asked, how much of this process is automated and streamlined versus what you had when the first archetypes were built? So I guess thinking back to the Knight,
Mm-hmm.
how is the tech changed? How has your workflow changed now that you're working on the Templar?
I mean, it's one of these things that we actually don't. Like powers, like I'll do powers for like a week at a time, once every, several months, and then iterate on them. So our tools have improved a little bit, but not, there's a lot of things we could, like I said, copying and pasting and a lot of quality of life things that we don't necessarily need right this second, and that we'll probably get in the future. It's just, right now our power creation workflow is like, do a lot of powers and then we don't really, do a lot for a while. So, I imagine we will be getting more improvements once we start working on disciplines, because that will be a lot of powers. There we go. So now you can see we are playing all 3 combos. And that last one looks a little bit fast, so I might have to change that. But and a lot of times actually the animators set the blackout times. Why didn't these guys come out of the ground? These are just, like I said, this is a test zone that we just set up to test like literally everything. Hey, there's a bunch of trees. That's from when we were working on harvesting. And so we have pretty much every harvesting thing you could ever conceivably imagine spawned over there. And then oh, that's right. The NPCs. I was going to show NPCs. Oh well. So let's look at what we have here. So you can see we have. You know why? Why don't I maximize this so it doesn't look like. Look better.
Someone just asked you to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Like so, as you can see, we don't have any effects. We don't have any hit flashes. Actually, we don't have any hit effects. So you can see the hit flashes are working. The damage is going off fairly well timed. I think we got those pretty well. And so yeah, I mean that's pretty much that's about as far as we can take these right now, I believe. You might notice it looks a little funny when she runs. That's because she doesn't have a weapon equipped because we just haven't built those things yet. She's playing her unarmed idol actually. Let me get out of combat. And you notice she like unsheathed instantly. That's because she thinks she's unarmed right now. So she's playing her unarmed idol. Which is why she's holding the sword funny and why she's running kind of weird. So like I said, this is, what you're seeing right now is not even, it's not going to be how it looks final. So anyway, well, that I guess we'll straight up to 3. We have a couple more minutes or whatever. This will be, that's pretty much it for making some powers, but we have a couple more minutes if there's any more questions.
Sure.
You guys want to?
Some more questions.
I'm telling you, Cedar time in Austin.
Got some comments when you were talking about every archetype getting cooler and more complex. Cal Soul Reaver said, "Please make the assassin last." Then.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm not sure who our next is. You'll find out probably shortly after we release Templar.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually how we roll.
Drakeny or Drake NY asked, "Are you guys designing new powers and archetypes based on what the system can already handle, or just adding new mechanics as needed?"
We do a little both, right? So as I kind of mentioned, we always ask for new tricks and toys, as much as as needed when we make archetypes, right? So like Duelist gave us stealth. It gave us like a random ability node. It gave us a bunch of functionality that you just isn't very particularly transparent, but is useful that we're going to use for other things. And so that's generally how we ask for things. The analogy of like instead of asking for a toy car, we ask for the Legos to build a car. So that's sort of the approach we take with everything. And so archetypes we always try to it's always gonna have new tricks. So like for example, did we? Yeah, actually we did because I have it written down. We announced that.
You've got your little what can I say sheet.
Yeah, well I just wrote down the things that were on the website to make sure I didn't say anything that wasn't on the website.
Good call.
Hey, it's not my first
You've
rodeo.
done this before, haven't you?
So yeah, like holy damage, for example, that's going to be one of the sort of new things that the Templar is going to introduce and stuff like that. So we're always asking for new stuff. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All
right, just call it a stream.
That's a good thing to end on.
All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed.
Yeah.
And have fun.
Thank you, Mark.
See you in
Thank
game.
you guys so much for
Sorry if I
joining.
kill you.
Thanks, guys. We are signing off.
Bye. I'm not gonna eat the rest of my Snickers.